Welcome to Our Journey to Christ podcast with your hosts, Nikki Cottom and Katie Spencer. Join them as they discuss difficult conversations, hope, joy, identity, expansion, faith, trust, belonging, and healing.
Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Today, we are going to just sit and chat. So I am Katie Spencer, and I have Nikki Cottom as my co-host to sit and join today. Nikki, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. A little scatterbrained, but it's nothing that God can't handle with me.
I think I'm scatterbrained every day. So, we just show up at the best we can each day, right?
It's true. That's what we do, and God fills in for us. So, yes, I'm glad I'm on his side.
I love it. I love it. Well, Nikki and I, we're gonna just kind of sit and chat. We've been talking about different ideas, and recently my father passed away, and so as we're preparing for his funeral services and reflecting as a family over his life, it gave me some moments to kind of look at what kind of an influence he's had in my life, and in doing so. Um, I was thinking about lessons that I learned, and one of those lessons that really stood out of an attribute that my father had was how he had his perspective on life. He was not born into this life with a very easy beginning. He had some pretty big challenges that started out in his childhood, and yet as he chose to live his life, he made choices. That's what we want to talk about today is choices. But he made choices that his circumstances didn't depict what his future was going to be. He really worked hard on looking at things in what was available to him, having an open mind of saying, even though this may be my current situation, this doesn't hold me back from anything in the world. And really showing me as a young child, being open about his life, his situation, and really showing his heart about learning how to forgive and to love and to take every opportunity as it comes to choose whether you want to see a good or a bad, sit in a bad, or look for a better situation. And so it's given me this time, to just sit back and say, like, wow, I was blessed to have that kind of an influence in my life young, right?
Yeah.
To kind of sit and say, okay, so he was showing me different aspects of how he chose to live his life. And then I have my life, my own choices, right? I hope that as I live my life, that I can be a reflection of some of the positive things that my father has put an impact in my life. But ultimately, I am who I am. I am my own person, right? And so today, Nikki, let's talk about choices. Let's talk about how life throws situations at us and how we choose to sit with that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nikki. Like
Yeah.
let's talk this out, right? Like, are we
Yeah.
gonna sit here and be victims in this world? Or are we going to choose to be our own heroes in life?
Yes. I love that you talk about your dad. I had the privilege of meeting your dad at the tail end of his life when he was a little bit mentally gone, but I'm really grateful that I got to meet him because I learned so much just seeing him smile. I could feel his spirit. I could feel his love. I was like, "Man, he is an amazing guy." And so, even though I missed the better part of his life, not knowing him, it's a really big honor to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that about your father, and of what Katie's told me, it was a lot rougher of a childhood than a lot of us, have gone through or would want to admit, and, he just prevailed. He didn't let his external circumstances depict the quality of his life in ways that brought him satisfaction and happiness and joy and fulfillment, and to see his beautiful love that just shines through his whole spirit pour into you. That he didn't say, "Oh, I had a crummy childhood, so therefore I don't care about your childhood." It was, "No, I had a crummy childhood, so I'm gonna pour all the life I can into you." It does go back to choice, doesn't it? It goes back to this choice of, yes, we might not be able to choose in the moment what our circumstances are, but we do get to choose our interpretation of the circumstances and how we are going to move forward in those situations and despite those situations.
It's true, right? And that's exactly it. Life is going to be challenging for all of us. It's not meant to be easy. We are to experience, to learn, and to grow, right? But it really is about that perspective of, are we choosing to learn and to grow? So Nikki, in that question of talking about choices, let's talk a little bit more about where we are giving our power away. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean to give your power away?
If we are ever coming from a place of blame, we have instantly given our power away. That's that's one of the first sure signs you have given your power away, if there is blame. So if I wake up and I am blaming my poor sleep on the fact that I'm grumpy, I'm blaming this external circumstance. How much of my free will have I just given away? I've given away a lot, right? Like I've given all that energy away. If you ever study the laws of the universe, the law of thinking, the laws of abundance, anything like that, it all goes back to where we're putting intention. And if we are putting intention into blame, it's instantly gone. Another way we've known we give it away is if we react instead of a choice of action. Like being able to internally go say, okay, how am I going to respond to this? Or am I going to respond to it? What is my choice here? Because if we just react, if somebody says, well, Nikki, that comment was stupid. And I say, well, that's because you don't understand and blah, blah, blah. Then what have I just done? I've literally given my power away because I could have chosen to say, well, that's an interesting thought. Tell me more. Like, where does that come from? Or I could just simply not respond. That's also a choice. No matter what choice we make throughout our day, we always are choosing, and in those choices determines what we are giving our free will to. So if I give in to cravings, I've just given my power away to cravings. And I'm not saying we don't do it. I did it today. But I am saying that the awareness of it brings a lot of enlightenment. I had a recent experience. We were having a special morning with our family, and I had a meeting before we did this activity with my family. We had this meeting, and so I put my husband in charge of making like this special breakfast for the kids because I had to go to this meeting. So I started and then I left and I come back and my husband has made the breakfast for the kids, but not me. I was like, "What? Am I not important? What how did you get it in your head that it wasn't important to include the whole family in making breakfast?" And I hadn't specifically said, "Will you make it for every single person?" I just was thinking about the kids, so I said the kids. So he literally made it for the kids. Right? And so my mind started to go down this of like, after all these years, and he still doesn't know that I appreciate it when he does things like this for me. And, starting to go down that. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that the choice I want to make here? And so I thought about it and I would say, what would be the happy ending to this story? Like, what would be the better outcome than just going up to him and saying, what about me? You didn't think about me? And so I decided that I was going to, like, the kids were all appeased, they were satisfied, they were running off doing the family activities, and I started whipping up a special breakfast just for him and me. And I did that, and it ended up being this beautiful moment. The kids were satisfied with their breakfast, my husband and I were enjoying ours, and I love that experience because A, I caught myself and didn't go down that path like I would normally have done, right? I'm celebrating my successes where I can. And B, because I got to have that special moment. It could have turned out into a blame game, and instead it turned out to be a memory that I laugh at now. Like, that was really funny that I thought that I had these weird thoughts because I know he loves me, right? It's things like that, experiences that I have like that, and when I do catch myself, I'm proud of myself because I think I'm a human being too. There are times where I don't catch myself, but it's that awareness, and the more I can step in and call that free will back to me and say, "I don't have to throw my free will into this pity party. I can actually collect it and say, what do I want to do with this energy, with this intention, with this power that I have in me?" And I think that's the beauty of free will is that we get to choose. We get to choose our outcome to a degree. We mostly just get to choose where are we going to focus our efforts. And Katie, I'm curious, is there an instance in your dad's life that you want to bring up? Because I'm thinking there are probably a bunch. But I'm just thinking, is there a story from his past where that you can think of specifically, where instead of deciding, oh, my life gave me lemons, and so I'm living a sour life for the rest of my life, or that he said, you know what, I'm going to choose to make lemonade out of this?
Yeah, for sure. So just a little bit about my dad. My dad was born to a single mother, and my grandmother struggled in relationships, and so she had multiple marriages. And so he and his younger brother found themselves without a home, basically, when he was about 10. And so he got put into the care of the county, and I think he was in kind of an open children's home for about a year. And after that, he was able to be placed with his brother into a foster home. Those years were not easy years from the things he's told me about. The county home was new, and my understanding was he made a few friends there, and families would come, foster families would come and kind of pick and choose and take kids in, and they had to kind of show themselves off of, like, audition, if you want to say, to find a home.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I can't imagine, like, how that would feel. Of first, the feelings of abandonment. His mom, the circumstances were that his mother just chose to continue her life not being an active mother anymore. And so he knew that he was being abandoned. Um, my dad was a protector. He had a younger sibling that he was making sure that he took on that provider, that protector role from a very young age. Uh,
Do you know how old he was? How
he was
young he
9
was?
he was 9 or 10.
Wow.
So, really hard, right? My dad was placed, like I said, into a beautiful family. Actually, my dad changed his name and took on the foster family name. So the O'Leary name, my maiden name, actually comes from my foster family, or my dad's foster family. And he was blessed in that sense that he was able to, once he was placed into this family at about age 11, let's say, he stayed there till he was 18 and was able to really fit in. And they had a bunch of boys, and he just grew up in kind of a family environment, always an open door, revolving door of boys coming and going when you're in the foster system. Some of them are temporary, right? But I think the biggest lesson about the choice, I mean, obviously my dad was making choices all throughout this. Like, this didn't stop him. He was an excellent student. He applied himself in every aspect. His education was important to him. So many different things. But the beauty of what I really saw was that my dad found it in his heart. He actively chose to make amends with his birth mother. And that was huge. That was a huge pivotal choice of choosing to say, you know what, life was probably difficult, and I don't know what it would have been like, what her situation was, and the decisions she needed to make, right? But it was important for him to, when she was ready, to reach out, for him to foster that relationship back with her. I have memories of her as a small child, as her a part of my life, as a grandmother in my life. And so that was a really big life lesson. I learned so many attributes about my father. Like I said, that forgiveness, that loving heart, that compassion, right? But what I really think is that my dad had these life experiences that he didn't choose, but I think that they helped him have perspective of different experiences, other people and other situations that other people were enduring, and maybe that perspective of, darn, this is hard.
Yeah.
Um, Grateful I have a mother that wants to reconcile, right? That cares, that is showing love after she's gone through her experiences and seeking to reach out. But
Yes.
those were choices, like, big choices, because he could have said, "There's no way." He could have cut ties, right? He could have been a victim, very much so, and said that, "You abandoned me. There's no way I can move forward with this." Like, no. Why would I even have any place in my heart for somebody, or subject myself into a position where I could be hurt again, right?
Yes. Yes. And there are two big choices that I see in his story that could have been interpreted that contradict each other, but that it just shows his authentic choice. And the first one is that he changed his last name. He changed his last name to be affiliated with a family that he felt belonging in. But then he went and reconciled with his birth mother. I just see so much choice in that because he could have just said, "No, mom, you're totally out of my life to the point that I'm changing my name." But he didn't. He said, "I'm choosing this last name, and I'm also choosing to reconcile with my mom." He actually made very conscious choices, and you can tell that he saw himself as his own person responsible for his own life. And I think that's beautiful. Just
Thank you.
so neat. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the most important thing is that God will never take away our choice. He can set people into our life, but it's up to us how we respond to those people. He can put an abundance of things in our life, and it's up to us to choose whether they're valuable or not, whether we want to utilize them or not. When we choose, it gives us power. When we react or we blame, it takes away power. Anytime we have criticism for somebody or something, we are letting that energy just drain. I in some of my work, I do like to show where boundaries are around energy because I think it's really valuable. You can redraw your boundaries on paper. What I like to do is have a circle for me and then a circle for everybody in my life who influences my decision. And then I like to draw how close are they? Are they overlapping with my circle to the point where I can't even make the choice without them? Or are they completely on top of my circle? Like I can't choose anything without them? Or are they kind of far away? Like they kind of influence my choice because I'm thinking about them in my mind, but I'm going to make the choice no matter what. How close or far away are they? And so I've done that with people. I've done that with beliefs. I've done that with all sorts of things. And just, you just intuitively put down where you feel those influences or those people are. And depending on how close they are to you, shows how much energy is being given to that person or that thing. And it's a really fascinating experiment if you want to try it. And one thing that I realized as I was doing it for myself, the very first thing I realized as I'm doing this thing that came to my mind that I should do. And when I came to putting God on the page, God was close to me, but he did not overlap my circle at all. But you know who did overlap my circle? A bunch of different people. And I thought, if God has the respect to not interfere with any choice I make because he is a God of free will, then why am I letting other people determine my choices and the decisions I make? And so I redrew my circle and these other people's circles. And one of the circles I just completely drew at the very, very top corner of the page and then cut it off. Like, I don't even want the influence as far as taking my energy. And that was a fascinating experiment for me that gave me a visual of what it looks like when I give my power away. That things that are overlapping on my decisions, those are things that are taking power. I find that fascinating. In fact, I think that visual came to me after a conversation I had with one of my friends, and we were out walking, and she says, and her birthday's on a holiday, And we were talking about her birthday and what are you gonna do for your birthday? And she's like, "Well, I haven't really decided anything to do for my birthday for the last decade." And I'm like, "What? Why?" And she's like, "Oh, because it's also a holiday and family wants to get together and they all want to make it, an important family thing." And I'm like, "You've never decided for the last decade what you wanted to do for your birthday." She's like, "No, because it's a holiday and we're never sure quite how grandparents or great grandparents are going to do. They might, they might be ill. It might be the last chance. And she's going on and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, look how much guilt is associated with this. You've decided this is not even a choice that you can make." And that was kind of what got me going down this path of what does it look like when your free will is being taken away from you, or you're actually willingly giving it because it's free will. Nobody can take free will away from you without you allowing it somehow. Now, it doesn't mean we get to choose every single thing that we ever endure or go through, but our free will is always ours. What we do with our energy and our time and our mental capacity in the state that we are created in is completely up to us.
I love that, Nikki. As we've been discussing, I want to just clarify that we all give our free will, whether we are conscious of it or not, right? We give this energy that you were talking about away. And so I think that, what we're talking about with our choices is yes, we can make choices, right? And some seem easy, some seem more difficult. Some we might not even be aware of that we're giving up, like your friend, right? Where it's this idea that I have to please everybody else. I have to make sure everybody else is this is something that is for the collective, but what about her, right? And so I think it's so important that we acknowledge we all give away our free will.
Mhm.
And it's this awareness that Nikki and I want to talk about to help you maybe think a little bit about where have you given that away unknowingly, maybe even knowingly, that doesn't align with you anymore. Right? Because it's something that we naturally do from the beginning of our mortal time on earth here, right? You think about who do we give our free will and our energy to? Well, we give it to parents, we give it to siblings, right? We can give it to teachers, people in any sort of authority figure to us that we've been taught our whole life. Well, you respect them. Okay, well, does respect mean that we have to obey everything that's said, right? We can give it away to our friends, we can give it away to our enemies, we can give it away to romantic partners. And the important thing is that as we do this, if we don't ever call that energy back, we just have like a million different strings of energy tied and draining out of us all the time. And we can see that, we can give, it can be healthy. It can be healthy. It can be productive to give our will to others if we actively choose, right? But then it can also turn to our detriment. And it's really making that awareness to say, well, one, who am I giving it to? And then two,
Right.
and then why? Why? And does that still work for me? Right? We can give, especially let's look at just like parents and children, right? Parents kind of take the will of their children away a lot of times in the pretense of safety, in the pretense of we know better. This is children it's kind of this rearing stage of trying to teach them, to guide them, to shelter them, so many different aspects to protect them so that they can feel safe without the weight of the world on them, right? It's our job as parents to give them this sense and the ideal situation where they're free to be their children, to learn, to develop, to experience innocence in the form in which they were created to have, right? And again, this is in the ideal world. Then we have to help them step into themselves still as children, because we can't just throw them in the world as adults, right? My kids are
Right.
sitting on this, I'm 21 and almost 18 and 16, and I have to teach them in these ages when they're still under my direction on how to stand on their own 2 feet, right? So they just don't get attacked in the world. But they how many times do we as parents demand something from our children that we're not allowing them the ability to choose?
Mm,
These are gray areas. Like, it starts out from the very beginning,
right,
right?
right.
And then think, Nikki, like you were talking about all your circles of how many overlap. I'm an adult with now adult children, but how much am I still feeling that I give my energy and free will up to obey, let's say, my parents? Because expectations that they may have placed upon me that maybe I didn't choose.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's gray area, right? Like, this gets
It
so
is.
shady.
It definitely is, and I think you bring up a good point with when parents are kind of demanding the child just set aside their own will and do what it is their parents are asking them to do in the name of safety or in the name of comfort or whatever it is. And we always, whether or not we feel like we have the free will or choice, we always have the free will to determine in what attitude we are going to make that choice. Are we going to do it because out of love? Or are we going to do it out of fear? And those are ultimately the two strongest influences in the world as we make decisions. We can make a decision to eat out of love for our bodies, or we can make the decision to eat out of fear of what's going to happen if I don't eat. Is my blood sugar going to crash? Am I going to crave something later that I is unhealthy for me? Right? Those are the two main emotions that drive most decisions in this world. When we when we feel like we need to respond to somebody demanding our free will, or when somebody is wanting us to exercise our free will in a specific way, one thing we can do, whether or not we feel very empowered in making a change of what that free will option is we can always choose in what energy am I going to respond? Am I going to respond in fear or am I going to respond in love? So,
That's powerful, right?
yeah. And
I
I
mean,
think that way about Jesus too. How many times does Jesus say, "Follow me"? Am I following him because I'm afraid that if I don't follow him, my life's going to suck? Or am I following him because I love him so much and I just want that with me, his love, and I want to share my love with him all the time? Am I making that decision? So Jesus will never force us to follow him, right? It's always a choice. I think sometimes we get caught up in what is inherently right or wrong, and we miss this whole gray area that Katie was talking about, where it's not quite clear this free will area, because some of us, we might do the right thing for the wrong reason or the wrong thing for the right reason. Or we might do the wrong, it could be any combination of that. But fortunately, God knows our heart and he always gives us the free will to respond. And so, whereas somebody on the outside could judge our actions as, oh, they made that choice because of blah, blah, blah. And another person could say they didn't make that choice because of blah, blah, blah. And God knows our heart and he sees where we're exercising our free will. And that's what's important because people are going to judge left and right. People are going to make a whole dialogue out of every single choice that we make in the public eye. It's just going to happen. They're going to have their own story, their own narrative. But no matter what they say, the choice is always ours. And that choice can always be, you can always have this true dialogue of the choice between you and God.
it's true. And it makes me think back to a previous episode where we talk about our identity and ultimately between that love and that fear, right? And how we go about these things. But I think what we need to just reiterate is we have to lean upon that inner divine soul that we are.
Mhm.
right? We need to understand, like when you were talking about your boundaries, God does not overstep our boundaries. He's right there with us, right? He comes step to step with us, and he loves us and he respects us and he walks with us when we choose to walk with him. But he doesn't impede into that. And I think that as I've learned and I've studied more about taking back my power and what my power and my energy really is, how much power and energy do we have in just identifying who we are as a daughter or son of God? That
Yeah,
divinity within, and to say that there isn't anyone that could, especially when people take our power in an abusive way, in a manipulative way, in a controlling way, even if it's not with that intent, right, in
right,
family relationships, but there's still that control. It's these expectations. It's these how many times do we find ourselves saying yes because we are afraid to say no, that fear, right? Or it's like, oh, what will the fallout be? Or I'll hurt other people, or I want to
right,
make sure that I'm pleasing them, right?
right.
But God wants each one of us to shine, to fully step into that power and that divinity within each of us.
Yes.
Unique to us.
Yes, 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 and can I just, like, make a side plug for that? Um, I know we haven't talked about chakras here, the chakra system, but identity is at the very core of the chakra system. It's the very first chakra, the root chakra, and the theme of the root chakra is I am. Okay, and every single level in the chakra system has a theme, and each of those, there's a strong free will component that is an intrinsic motivator or identifier or belief that manifests outwardly. And so, like Katie was talking about identity, you always have the free will to choose how you are going to feel about who you are, how you are going to how you are going to embody who you are, and whether you are going to take on what God has inherently given you or the titles other people have given you. Like we talked about in the first episode, that if you move up the chakra system, I feel. Did you know that feeling is a choice? Like, kind of in my example earlier, where I got to choose whether I was going to feel disappointment that my husband didn't make me breakfast, or I could feel love instead and make breakfast for both of us. But
Well,
then we get,
Nikki, real quick,
no,
we
go
have
ahead.
to recognize that with feeling, nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can contradict. You feel what you feel. And no matter what anybody else says, they can't change or interpret differently what you feel. There is power in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's not opinion. It's not opinion. It is
Right.
just fact. I feel.
Right. Right? And if you ever get into manifestation and understanding how energy works in that regard, there was a whole TV show dedicated to this one, and it's called The Secret. And the feeling is the secret. What you feel is literally what you manifest outwardly. And so you might not get to choose the impulse feeling that comes, like the trigger or the reaction feeling, but you do get to choose whether you transmute it, flip it around, say, I'm going to make the choice to decide what I'm going to feel here. And so I really love that. And you can do that with all the chakras. You could just Google this up, like the themes for each chakra. But like the bottom one, I am. Like I am. We get to choose what we say I am. And that's a whole new theme. We could spend a whole episode on that. I feel. And then the solar plexus, I do. Like this is what I do. The heart chakra, I love. The throat chakra, I speak. The third eye chakra, which is I see, and then the crown chakra, I know. And if your free will radiates through all of those themes at any given point, you have the power, no matter what's going on in your external circumstances, you have the power to transmute any lower belief, any harmful or trigger belief related to that into a positive because you have so much power within you. And that power comes from and through choice. And that is beautiful. You are a creative being. You are a child of the ultimate creator. And therefore, you create. Just you will, no matter whether you're trying to or not. I can create an environment around me of people who are disgruntled and feeling sorry for themselves. Or I can create an environment where we can laugh it off and we can forgive and we can be okay making mistakes because we all love each other. It's up to us what we want to do with that energy, but regardless of what's going on in our external circumstances, whether we feel pulled in so many directions, or we feel suffocated, or we feel like we can't do something, we always have a choice in these spaces. And those are spaces that nobody gets to choose except for us, for ourselves. I
I
wasn't
lo-
planning on sharing that, but it seemed appropriate.
no, I love it. I love the chakras. I love going into, a little bit more of it. Yeah, just being in that alignment, right? And stepping into that. So I did want to just say, we've talked a lot about our free will and giving it away and pulling it back, right? I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that might help you in this awareness in yourself of where you might be giving your power away. So if you are feeling like you can never say no, that you need to say yes, even when it goes against every part of you, that you just have a really difficult time saying no, it may be a time to reflect. Where is your power? If
Yes.
you are feeling not yourself, that you have to hide, you have to put on a mask in certain situations or with certain dynamics. You don't feel good in your own skin in the fact that you feel like you just have to be putting on so many different layers to fit in, or you have to refrain from speaking or holding yourself back. I would say that could be an identifier that you're giving your power away, that you are living not according to the alignment of who you are, right? Holding on to your power is freedom.
Yes.
It helps people. Like I've listened to so many different victims of all forms of abuse. Um and when, like Nikki said, when we act out of fear, right? And victims usually are being held by some sort of a fear tactic, um, you give up your power. And yet when you step into owning it, accepting it, right? Not saying it because, some people truly are abused in most horrific ways, and they are never, never at fault, no matter what anybody says. Stepping in and being able to say, yes, this happened. Yes, this did happen. They don't take responsibility for it. They just acknowledge that it happened. That is pulling their power back. It's
Yes.
giving them this strength. And it's amazing that you can actually see it. And Nikki, I'm sure you've seen it too, in people's countenance,
Oh, yeah.
right? People get confused that, like, or well, let's put it together. But confidence is pulling that free will, pulling your power back from anybody else. People present themselves in just this beautiful way of saying, no, I am. Like exactly what you said. I am strong.
Yes.
I have this ability. I will not, right? We make mistakes, you guys. This isn't saying that we're perfect. This isn't saying that we're not going to fumble through. This doesn't say that life is not going to be challenging or hard, because it is. It's meant to be here to experience, right? And it's not going to say that we're not going to blow up and totally respond and act out of our emotions, right? Nikki did so good at not going off on her husband that day. I might not have, in all honesty, right? But this is about learning. This is about assessing in ourselves and about allowing ourselves, making that active choice of saying, wait, there is another way. There's a higher way that I can approach this and I can do. And the great thing about this, you guys, is that it doesn't require anybody else.
Yes. That's the best part.
Right? This is our own. These are our own. This is like choose your own adventure, right? Like that's dating me back in the day. But like we get to choose. We get to choose to pull our power back. Now, that doesn't mean, and like, I'm going to tell you guys, when we start pulling our power back and we can say, as easy as like, I love the phrase that other people's opinions of me is none of my business, right? Like when I learned that, I was like, okay, well, hold on. Say that again. What other people's opinions of me is none of my business. People can have their opinions all they want. That does not have to be reflective of who I am. It
Right.
does not have to be true. It can be their interpretation. It can be their experience. But in keeping that idea in myself, I can look to my greater source, to my God, to help reaffirm who I am. It's his opinion, nobody else's, that I really need to hold true to. Right? So I can change the way that I view myself. I can change the way I respond to things. And I've done nothing with those other people or their opinions. They can still stay the same.
Right.
But the power that I pull back is that I don't care. And that sounds really harsh, but I don't care about them in that regard of what their opinion is, because it really is not my business.
Right. And did Jesus care about other people's opinions of him?
No.
No. And they had a lot to say. Very loud voices, right? But you can tell everything he did was in choice. It was in a space where he had chosen. And so there's no better person to walk beside us, affirming our choice and encouraging us to use our free will in ways we're going to be proud of than him. And so when I do something, I'm like, oh, I should have said it better, or "Oh, somebody's going to take it in the wrong way, or whatever. God is like, that's, oh, well, like, it's fine. People are going to do what they're going to do. And that's their free will. But your free will, you can exercise it in a higher and holier way. I'm like, I can. Yes, I absolutely can, because that is my free will. And so it all stems from this. And if God gives me an instructions, if Jesus says, I want you to walk with me on this road, am I going to say, I've got an appointment at this time? I think it's really, really fascinating that you mentioned, Katie, about like try saying no, right? When you would usually say yes. And I'm not saying you should do that just to spite people, but when you start saying no, or at least thinking in your mind, getting that awareness of, in the past, I've always said yes. What would happen if I said no? Like,
Right?
what would happen? What does my soul feel like? Does it feel liberating? Or does it feel like, like it's totally up to you? You can do whatever you want. What does it feel like? Because so many of us feel like we can't make a different decision because we've been programmed a certain way. But if God really is who matters the most and he's saying it's totally up to you, then what? You get to choose, right?
Well, and it's true. Well, and I've even heard about no parties. Like, I loved this idea when I heard this, where you actually get together with friends and you have to practice saying no. You have to actually interact with each other, ask each other questions, and you have to say no. Because it really can be an exercise that it could be very foreign to some. Saying no can be very hard. And so actually practicing looking in the mirror, right? And saying no. Or telling your kids no, right? Telling your spouse no. It is okay to say no. One of the things that Nikki was talking about was boundaries, and that is a sign that when you have given your power away, that there are no boundaries, right? It's this wishy-washy, you're people pleasing, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. But the beautiful thing is when you set boundaries, it's amazing how much your life can just flow easier. Right? There's a beautiful book about boundaries by, the last name's Townsend. You should look it up. He has lots of different ones that teaches us about boundaries. It can be scary, you guys. Boundaries can be very, very scary. But I promise you that boundaries are exactly what we need. And we get to set the different boundaries, whether it be, I love the image of having, thinking about your home, right? And with your home, how many of you guys have walls on your houses? How many have doors in your houses? Right? And why? How many of you guys don't have any doors in your bathroom and it's just free for all for anybody and everyone to come on in when you're going to the bathroom? Like, I mean, that's like the silliest representation, but there is a time and a space to have privacy. There is a time and a space to close things off, that not everybody has access to every part of you, and that is okay. And having that respect with those boundaries actually allows people to understand where they can come to you, where they can turn to you, and where you can turn to others. And it becomes healthy. It becomes respectful, right? I don't go and start gardening in my neighbor's yard I garden in
Right.
my own, right?
Yeah.
People park in my driveway and not my neighbor's driveway. Like, there's a respect that comes understanding. Plus, there's an ownership and awareness of the things that you take care of and you nurture, right? And with these boundaries, we have the ability to choose that, I might put up a brick wall. I
Mhm.
might put up a brick wall, or I might have a gate that is very open. And I might have an archway that comes and goes, right? Like, there's just different degrees of what we can put, but it's so important. My husband also reminded me yesterday of a quote that discipline is freedom. And it's that same idea, right? When we put structure, not control, structure and boundaries of where and how we interact with people, because we are actively choosing for ourselves, not because we're controlled or manipulated or under any other appearance of even that idea of like wanting to be accepted, or that again, it's fear is causing us to do something. It's time to reassess, because we really need to be living our life in joy.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And I love, the quote too, fences make good neighbors, right? Like if we are enmeshed so deeply with parents, siblings, friends that we don't even know who we are, that's a problem because it means that a whole bunch of your free will is gone. But when you have the liberty to say yes or no to whatever is going on, that's freedom. And that freedom allows for more freedom. And freedom breeds freedom. Freedom brings freedom. And our energy isn't drained and drained and drained by our impulse reactions because we feel like our worth is attached to doing something for somebody or this enmeshed relationship where I say, well, I'm my mom, so I'm going to do this. No, no, you're not. You have different gifts, different talents, different priorities. And so really being able to receive those that freedom back is so powerful. So powerful.
It is. It's true. Well, and I was also reminded that, when we get confused and we give our free will to others in order that we think that we're helping them, we're actually limiting them from maybe fully accessing their own. And so it
Hmm.
really is important, even though it could be scary when we pull back, it allows everyone to really stand within their own energy, their own abilities. And so pulling back can actually be the best for all, because it allows us to have our power and those individuals to then step in within their own power themselves.
Amen. Amen. That's beautifully said. Thank you. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I'm like, you just nailed it. You said it better than I could. um, so, for those of you listening, if you're interested, I do have a $20 cl- little mini course on my website, nikkicottom.com, and it is labeled Energy Boundaries. So if you go to nikkicottom.com and you click on online courses, then you should be able to open that up. It's a $20 course and it teaches you how to structure boundaries on paper so you can envision them in your mind, and then you can literally, because it's happening within, it broadcasts outward, and it's powerful. I've done it with people, ideas, relationships, attachments, addictions, you name it. I've done it on so many different things. It works across the board. So I encourage you, if you're interested, go check that out, and it could be helpful for you. But thanks so much for listening today. It's so great to have you here as an audience. Thank you, Katie, for all your wisdom you bring. It's always a pleasure to have these discussions with you anytime. We could talk day and night.
And we do, Nikki, we do. We just allow these little glimpses with the public.
Right? It's true. Well, thank you so much. And is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up here?
No, I just encourage you to, listen and be aware in your own heart, so where you can take small steps to just pulling your power back, and I promise that you will see strength come to you as you do so.
Amen. Well, thank you. Thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next time.